This is going to be um, a talk that is very unique. It is a talk which I am truly at the peak of it giving to myself, because my talk is about birth and days of birth. Because, guys, today is my birthday. And in a sense, what I'm trying to communicate here is that outside and, in a sense, beyond all the playful imagery, there is a sense of existential direction in which you find to be the light that you're drawn to, similar to a sprouting flower, let's say, a lotus flower. We look at many things, but when it comes to birth, I will be analyzing my own birth. And so, guys, my memory at times is one of very different experiences of itself. And what that means is that your memory is simply not something that is disconnected, subjectively from other thoughts. It is not even a physical relationship. It is an existential, energetic point of self-awareness, but self-awareness through many different lenses. What that means is that once you discover the playfulness of existence, it seemed that one eye wanted to look through many eyes. And so what happens after one eye has looked through, infinite eyes? Infinity begins to find itself in the one. And so your access point as consciousness is one where you recognize that your birth was simply your awakening into your new physical playground. Alright, guys. This may even perhaps just become a personal episode. I don't know if I'm going to post this. But anyways, let's say if this does meet the ears of madness, I shall still, very gracefully and in a very relaxed way tell you my idea here. So, the concept of birth originates in your mind, and your understanding of your mind is a temporal relationship. And so, what is this awareness to an awareness of the temporal? And so that existential point becomes the one where the attention of the thought that is you, in a sense, is finding itself to be more omniscient than it knows itself to be. The eyes that you hold now allow you to be one who can experience many different visions through different states of being. So what that means is, imagine you're someone who is perhaps just walking in the Himalayas, and you can't travel around anywhere, right? But you've always wanted to travel, right? And so what you recognize after perhaps meditating by a stream is that regardless of what you want, there is a continuation, and simply it is your awareness of this change in spectrum that is actually your opening. Your awareness to your awareness is, your awareness to the moment is a mindfulness that cannot be emptied. And therefore, I have had many people approach me very synchronistically and communicate certain views of relations and memories. And so there have been many incidents where I have looked into the eyes of the truth of many other human beings in which I seem to be engaged, and I seem to be as real to them in that vision of idea as the one here. And so before one can talk about spirituality or anything of a truly, you know, expressive nature, you really need to see where you are and what you are. It's like there's your shoelaces are untied, but once you get them tied, you're pretty much good to walk, right? So in life, sometimes our shoelaces are untied and we feel devastated, you know. Some person, you know, forgets who they are and perhaps gets involved in a job for longer than they have to, and so they're not realizing, in regards to who they are and their sense of inspiration, they're not tying their shoe. If you're not honest with yourself, if you're not lying, man, oh wow, imagine how many shoes are going untied. Because every time you lie, a different sense of self seems to play in another person's mirage, I guess. I don't know. So, guys, in a sense, I have found the concept of birth being one that can be covered with stories. But to be born means to have different awareness to different states of being, and hopefully, just like that yogi in the Himalayas, recognizing the ability one has to actually change their experience, internal experience, in which many different externalities are found. And so, if I didn't have money or anything, I would perhaps sit down beside a tree and just experience different ways that I'm alive. And so, once your self awareness increases, there cannot be problems connected to you too long. Once you really want to help yourself, once you really want to advance, once you're inspired, you recognize purpose meant bringing a greater efficiency and being part of it, right? And so your state of being is always contributing. You know, you cannot ignore your state of being. What that means is that you cannot, you know, not see certain aspects of yourself. Okay? And not, you know, acknowledge it. What that means is that it's not like you have many selves. You just have many different associations with what you remember, which are in a sense refabricated in the moment by the influence of your environment in your subconscious. And this is a very just off the top of my head, you know, I guess note on this. But to truly see our reality, I have found that we trust life. And so the communication we get out of life is based on the awareness we have. What that means is that you are lonely in one state of being, regardless of the form fluctuation. As you go through another state of being, and guys, it's not like a video game, by the way. These are just natural, synchronistic, smooth transitions of experiences that life will provide you for you to awaken to a sense of recognizing your intelligence more of an within the abstract, eternal nature of what is the expanse of all existence, the universe, you know. So as I am using the words of this time and the gestures of all that I have recorded since my birth, I am telling you that once you become aware of all that you can within a moment acknowledge, you will then reach states where you have reached self-awareness, but your idea is still engaged. What that means is that first stage awareness, that you have an ego, you understand it conceptually, that's it. But the next stage of it is that you realize that once you have really confronted, once you get a cognition, you don't search for 1,000 more cognitions, you know? You just try to absorb the impact of one sense of revelation. And so it's not about giving too many messages. It's simply about speaking in a manner in which you are allowing your remembrance, regardless of a sense of birth, to allow all transitionings to be found within your moment. Life is smooth, and we all have a sense of choice. But you know, who really chooses what you do when you're asleep? And so why are you not bothered by that? Because you do not have your immediate attention to a reality that is relevant to the memory you can have with this body, right? I mean, after a time of self-awareness, you recognize that there are certain limitations within your self-awareness. In other words, your bodies in which you're conscious of, that is just ridiculous. I mean, guys, I have seen certain things about the human being being limited. But the reason I realize I can see that it's limited is because it's limitless. Do you know? So if you are able to see limitation, trust me, then you are limitless. So what that means is that if you suddenly think, and you can use this as Mr.Within's, you know, guiding against alchemical formula too, you know, positive energy. Take it in like this, that regardless of how linearly you progress, if you have the limitation, for example, of I don't deserve this, the only way you can change your state of being is by recognizing that the only way you know how exactly limited something is by how exactly limitless you are. And to get this understanding means one of various different energy formats, you know, different wavelengths of experience. When you think of the concept of multidimensionality, you know, you might, you know, just see scenes from the movie Matrix, for example. But what you actually see in my findings and meditative practice is that once we walk through the halls of compassion to get to the garden in which we're sitting to calmly meditate upon, we notice that a tranquil environment brings you a sense of harmony in which your access to the experience in which your memories are become no longer just meaningless flashbacks, but a search within your own recollection of everything. In other words, when I ask a question, it's as if in this present moment, an idea, a question has rised up and simply challenged an answer. And when you challenge yourself like that, you realize that you know when you're satisfied by the answer or not. And so how do you know that? How do you know there are some things and there aren't some things, you know? And you may accept very basic, like, psychological explanations, but I'm a very deep guy in the sense that I find within depth are many hidden treasures. Because, guys, today I was born, right? And I realized that my eyes, when they were open then and how they are open now, you know what the difference is? There is a lot of memory, experience, and living that's been done. But in essence, there has been a nostalgic feeling of one wanting to communicate in more existentially expressive ways. What that means is that perhaps the great musician that came to great fame and was honored by many was inspired by the fact that he was never fulfilled by anything. In other words, there are some men who have such an ability to see the depth of, I guess, how low man can be. You know, there's some books that you sometimes read and you see the author speaks of mankind as if it's a disease. And that is a stupid idea, because you do not communicate in your confusion. When you are in let's say, a state of confusion, you must close your eyes to open them again in a new body. You know. So happy birthday. Because the moment is truly powerful, guys. You know. I guess there isn't much I could say about birth, you know. But I guess I could do one more thing. I'm going to analyze the concept of the concept of how who you think you are is at first a sense of self that is hollow, that is empty, because you see that the values and the evaluation of the moment, not objects of the moment, the awareness that is the greatest evaluation that can be existentially perceived within the moment, is accessible to you by your own allowance for it to occur in that manner. You recognize that what synchronicity is at times trying to communicate is that once you have trusted the voice that is coming from the wind, then you are also ready to listen to the wind's revelation. And what that means is that we are always intermediaries, as in the sense that we are always bridges. And at times we may think we might be roadblocks in some people's lives, but in a sense we're always bridges. Because a roadblock inspires you to create another bridge. Right? And, you know, you must let yourself find yourself, you know, very sincerely. Much blessings, guys, and happy birthday, you know, because you are always born within the moment, always. Once your consciousness begins to associate no longer with just forms and forms being compared to other forms, you simply allow your vision to let the dualistic, let's say, realities or views or relationships that your mind has collected through years to, in a sense, be integrated with the unified experience. So, Muji, which is a very loving teacher, is a man who says he's from a non-dualistic school. And, he is wise for saying that. He's a very wise man. But you see that it's very interesting because how can someone say, I'm studying non-duality when you are in duality. You are shaped, you're separate, right? So how can one be in a state of non-separation when you're separate? And so guys, this is where questions begin in which myths become your history books. Because, you can choose to let your imagination be dictated by what is provided for you and what is marketed to you, or you can choose your innate intuitive clarity to guide you outside of your too much of a serious engagement with the story, Like, if you need to, as a spiritual person, you at first feel like you're somewhere where others are not. But once you look at that space, you see that you have been covering these ideas with more ideas. So saying the word spiritual is covering that unspeakable experience, and then our understanding of the word spiritual is also changing it, And so this is why language is always its own translator, Language doesn't care. But, that's when the poets, integral mind and chaotic mind helps. Appreciate the type of being you are and know that just like Mr. Within, you are present in many ways. And so always be aware of all ways. Much blessings and namaste.